everybody, and welcome to this week's Heart of CX podcast. My name is Max Ball, joined today, as always, by the wonderful Joanna Palmer. Joanna, how are you doing today?
I'm doing really well. Really excited to be here today, Max. How are you doing?
I'm doing well, and I'm excited too because we've got a topic that I've got a lot of passion for, and I know you do too. What we thought we'd do is we talk a lot about AI. We kind of find excuses to sneak in an AI discussion anytime we're talking. And today is not an excuse. It's a really big piece of AI, which is what does real-time AI look like in the contact center? And what we really want to do, I know how to get you started. So what we really want to do is talk about AI. And it's not just, AI is just bots, right, Joanna? There's nothing else.
Oh my goodness, Max. You know my buttons. So AI is not just bots, and bots aren't necessarily AI, depending on how
good point.
built.
A lot of bots don't have any AI. It's just a FAQ or just listening to some basic speech recognition capabilities. Good point.
Yes, but you hit on a nerve there for sure. It is. How many times do you hear that where it's AI and bots in the same sentence, where it's just like, that's the one and only, ta-da! Now we've covered AI, let's move on.
And it's the use case that people are actually doing in decent sized volume. So it kind of makes sense. But yeah, so let me put it to you then. And again, we're just talking about real-time AI, which I was going to say obviously, but not necessarily. Bots would fall into that because that's a live interaction between the person and the bot. But okay, so if there are other things, Joanna, that are AI for the contact center real-time, what are they? Tell me about them.
Oh man, pop quiz here, Max Ball. Tell you what, you change your job and you get all ornery.
Yeah. Us industry analysts, we're kind of mean.
That's right. So one of my favorites is Agent Assist, the real-time Agent Assist, where the technology and platform can really understand what that customer is asking and coach the agent, not just on the context of the call, but also emotion detection is one of my favorites. Being able to coach that agent on soft skills as well as the actual servicing of the customer themselves. Of course, there is also robotic process automation, RPA. Predictive routing is another great one to talk about. What else is there, Max?
That's a lot of it. I can think of a couple other things, but they're really variations on Agent Assist. Like Agent Assist, if it's really melting down, could suddenly become Supervisor Assist because it's time to get somebody else involved or something like that. But I think that's good to start. If something else occurs to us, we can talk about it. But I think that'll probably keep us pretty full. So on the Agent Assist, some conversations I had last week around that, there were a couple of interesting points to me. One of them was somebody was showing a product and it had just a transcript of the whole interaction. And some of the people involved in the call were just livid. That, how is that helpful to an agent? So what does the agent experience need to look? Okay, talk about a pop quiz. What does the agent experience need to look like to be a good? What does the agent need to be provided for this sort of Agent Assist to really be helpful to them? If it's not just a full transcript of everything that's being said.
Yeah, and so I like the idea of a full transcript as we think about the agent being present during that entire call. I think a lot of times agents get bombarded with sometimes, it's scripting and saying certain things. Sometimes it's what system do I go to get assistance? And so to have that agent fully present to be able to listen to that customer. It's taking that overhead off of the agent's shoulders and building it into technology. So being able to provide those answers real time to help coach the agent on what's the next best action for that call, rather than just providing a transcript. Just providing a transcript seems like a good first step, but of course that's not going to be the best solution if you're thinking about the best solution.
Other than, which I'm sure happens all the time when you're an agent, is, I drifted away for a second. I'm sorry, what were you talking about? Where are we? And avoiding those embarrassing moments. I can see that with a transcript, but much more than that, that's not, to me, what's helpful. Yeah, what's helpful is, so how do you intelligently figure out a next best action? What does that process look like?
Yeah, and it's really building that understanding within the context and the call itself, and when you've got your AI learning, having enough data for it to be able to have enough sampling across the various different call types, so that you've got those next best actions. It's AI is machine learning, and it's only as good as the input that's originally put into it and continually put into it to learn those various different algorithms and answers. What are your thoughts there, Max?
I agree with that totally. And I know I've seen systems where a lot of what they do is they get the big corpus of data. They go listen to everybody and everything. And one of the things that seems very smart, and I can't say I'm deeply knowledgeable on this, is where companies will go and they'll find the very best agents, and they'll track what they do and how they respond to things, and be able to, really start saying, okay, this person, when this topic came up, this is where this person went. So we want people to go there. And that makes a lot of sense to me, to really leverage the best expert that's doing some of these things. And in some cases it's tricky because you are, it can be so broad, and how do you learn enough to do that? I think you mentioned kind of a scripting approach, and that resonates with me, the idea that I'm going to have, I'm going to have, this is what I understood. Here are 3 ways you could instead, and sometimes it's just a no-brainer, but it would be okay within the tool to say, okay, this person wants to buy a book. I'm making this up, isn't it? So now it could even just be start triaging nonfiction, fiction, reference or something like that, just to start helping the agent narrow it down appropriately. And, that's not a great example because you don't need AI for that. But, there are smarter versions of that same sort of, okay, I want to send you down a path. I don't know enough to give you one option, but I can give you 3. And kind of to your earlier point, as you do that, that's the machine learning. And that's where the machine says, okay, this one never happens. This one happens 80% of the time. This one happens 20. I'm going to put the 80% in there and have the 20 as a quick backup if that's not what the person wants.
Yeah. And you bring up a great point there in terms of making sure that the user experience on the agent side is well thought out. So that
it's everything.
It is everything. It is everything. We focus a lot of times on the customer experience, but that user experience for the agent is absolutely critical to keep it clean, to keep adoption high. And, just thinking about ensuring that those inputs are always provided as well, so that the machine can continue to learn.
Something, I don't know if you'll have an opinion on this, but this is something that I was talking recently about that I'm a little bit at a loss for is this is really important information for you. Or I guess I have an opinion. I'll go ahead and state my opinion and I'm curious how you feel about it. Sometimes I realize I have opinions. This sort of information, this sort of guidance is so important, and we'll talk about emotion in a couple of minutes. But then there's also the whole CRM world, and how do you balance the screen real estate of here's my AI giving suggestions and here's the CRM? And I posed this to someone the other day, and what they said made a lot of sense to me is you really need to be able to support two modes in a perfect world. And I know we're a long way from that with this this is pretty bleeding edge. In a perfect world, you could have a full screen, I'm going to guide you and all of that. But what's really important is with this agent assist, you also have a small version. And you're just, there's little things there. And if I need it, I can click on it and I can get it because the need for CRM isn't going to go away. And I'm kind of curious if you may have no opinions or thoughts on that, but I'm kind of curious if you have some thoughts on that front.
Have you known me to have no opinion, Max? Especially when it comes to context.
Fair point.
So a couple of different thoughts I have on this. Number one, that ideal contact center is a fully integrated ecosystem between your CRM, between your AI engine, between your contact center routing engine, and having that fully integrated ecosystem. Are there parts of the CRM that can pull that AI can pull into the agent assist as needed, so that the agent doesn't have to have two different versions? Or one of my other technologies that I really like is that fully integrated agent desktop, where you think about the average agent goes to 8 different applications to serve a customer these days. 8 to 10, I think, is the statistic that I read recently. So if you've got this integrated agent desktop that enables those agents to pull in information as needed and have that single UI, I see that as utopia, and Agent Assist would be part of that.
That makes a lot of sense. I like that. That sounds like nirvana for
it does sound
piece,
like nirvana,
I guess.
Now on the other side of that is, what's the level of effort to build something like that, and how long does it take to get to nirvana?
Right, and what does it take to maintain nirvana?
Exactly.
Yeah. So speaking of nirvana, talk about emotion detection, because this is something that I think is really important, and I think you probably can kind of talk through how it should work as well as anybody. So why don't you take that on a little bit?
Yeah, so thinking about emotion detection and where it is in the call. So let's say emotion detection is sensed within the IVA, interactive virtual assistant, and you can tell that you've already got this heated customer before it even reaches an agent. You're going to want to send that to a more seasoned agent that is known to be able to de-escalate. But let's say that doesn't happen, that emotion and frustration start during that interaction with the agent. I think that that's when that real-time coaching can start on the agent side of the house, in terms of agent assist being able to show that the customer is escalating, is getting frustrated, and then providing that real-time coaching of, here are the steps to de-escalate. And then if it continues to escalate, if the agent is not successful in de-escalating that call, then there could be notifications sent to that agent's supervisor or to some sort of triage unit that says, hey, this agent needs assistance to help de-escalate this customer, and can automatically pull in an assist agent or an assist supervisor to help with that call, either to coach the agent as well or to start interacting with the customer, and try to help de-escalate that situation.
And
you have thoughts there?
That ties, and that ties into another piece, which is using AI for smart routing decisions. And you actually just gave us a really good, now that's like a escalation routing, but that's still a routing. And, there's simple, this person has an open ticket. Here's the last person who they talked to. I don't really need AI for that. But when you start getting into this language, because the beauty of a text interaction, a digital interaction, is when I make a phone call, I just call. You don't get you get the number I call from, but that's it. But when I do a text interaction, I start with my modem is broken or, whatever it may be. So right away, you're getting at least some information. And again, AI is more than bots, but bots are a big part of AI. When you have a bot interaction, all of a sudden now you've got a rich bunch of information. And with AI, you can start parsing that out and understanding, and then you can get it to the right person. And, you talked about the case of the supervisor, but it could also be, like you said before, I've got a crabby customer. I want to go to the really mature, good at empathy agents.
Yeah, and I don't want to trivialize bots by any means. The hot button is AI equals bots, but let's face it, bots can take a significant piece of the workload off the agent's shoulders, out of the contact center, and leveraging AI altogether. So I do think that there is significance with bots and bots being able to triage and to perform that first level of interaction and troubleshooting. And then as things escalate, hand it over to an agent. And, when you think about emotion detection during even the bot interaction, while it's not, are there things that the bot can be coached to do as well if the emotion gets escalated there?
That's interesting. I can hear an IVR system going, oh, that must be hard for you. I don't think it would be a particularly successful strategy, but
I'm so sorry, but you're still stuck with me.
So how can I help you? Right? Please.
Oh gosh, Max, we've got to have another episode on just our horror stories of IVRs that maybe we had a part in creating that didn't turn out so well. This is just thinking about.
That's a great idea. Yeah, with the IVR Hell podcast.
Yes. I mean, there's the customer side of it, and then as well as the creation of IVRs. But going back to real-time AI, so we've talked about bots. We've talked about agent assist and predictive routing. The other thing is RPA. So do you want to talk a little bit about RPA and some of those use cases in the contact center?
Yeah, there are really two of them. And one of them, in my mind, gets fuzzy with it. It's almost a flavor of agent assist. But the main place RPA plays out, I, as an old IVR guy, think of as something that used to be a piece of IVR applications because for reasons I understand, but we don't have an 18-hour window here to go through, early voice response systems, the way they got information out of a computer They didn't do, nowadays you do an ABI call and boom, here's all your information. But back in the day, you did what was called screen scraping. And the IVR would pretend to, would be given a screen, and you would tell it, here's where the data entry field is, and here's the things you fill out, and then you press this, and if you get the screen, you do that. And that's really, RPA is just taking that piece of that function and moving it over here, but then taking advantage of all the modern ways that computers can talk to each other now. So what RPA does is it takes rote data entry tasks and automates them. So simple examples are, at the end of a phone call with an agent, all of the notes from the conversation are gathered up and put into the CRM system and flagged, and there's a guess at a disposition code, and the agent now, instead of typing all that stuff, just check, check, check. Yeah, this is good. Huge time savings and, rote, boring stuff. And all kinds of back-end processes can be done that way, enrolling somebody in something. It's such a ripe, clear, and obvious thing to automate, where you're just filling in forms, you're doing stuff like that.
Yeah,
so that's a lot of it.
Definitely. And going back to that comment that agents work in 8 to 10 systems, how much of that is repeat data entry in those systems to ensure that all of the systems are in sync, rather than having automated processes that then have RPA built into them to move that data from one system to another. I mean,
yeah, it's so incredibly much more efficient that way.
Yeah, exactly. Just talking about all of this, I feel like there needs to be a new team in the contact center that is just focused on automation in it. If you think about all the things that we talked about today, it is not just creating that initial automation AI application. It is fine-tuning it, really monitoring how customers respond to it, and identifying how much deflection you had from it, how much time savings you had from it. So I do think that there's opportunities as well to rethink the organization as you're starting to decrease the number of agents that you potentially need based on automation. Do you reinvest those in other areas to continue to grow in your contact center and build functionality, such as having this automation and AI group?
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more. And it's something where the ROI is going to be so strong that I think it's going to be very easy to justify those bodies, because if it's not at all unusual for there to be 1, 2, 3, 5 minutes of post-call work, and imagine taking half of that away. Oh my goodness, what is that? What's that ROI look like? That's a no-brainer.
Yes, absolutely. On that note, I think that that's a great place to wrap it up today. I think that this was a really great conversation. Thanks, Max, for all the insights today. Anything you want to add?
No, I thank you for your insights. I think this is a fun topic, and I think we'll come up with some more excuses to talk about AI. That's for sure. And,
I'm sure we will.
Enjoyed it, and we'll talk again really soon.
All right, sounds great. Thanks. Take care.
Thanks. Bye.